Irish Peter, thanks for joining in. Let's see. So I'm doing a Thursday Q&A this evening, mostly because I actually don't have the time to do the regular Friday night Q&A, so that's why I actually had a short Q&A yesterday as well, doing a quick Thursday Q&A this evening as well. So let me know if you have any questions, and let me just put up a quick captain poll as well. There we go. The poll is up. So yesterday I had this poll as well. Erling Haaland. He was actually, I think Erling Haaland won yesterday, but it was really, really close. Not because of Enzo Fernandez or Bruno Fernandes, but because the other option got a lot of votes as well. So if you want to vote for someone else rather than Erling Haaland, Enzo Fernandez, Bruno Fernandes, please let me know in the chat. Held off the wildcard, I have 3 free transfers still. Best cheap midfielder, 5 million or under. I like Stuck. Yeah, he is probably one of the best midfielders around that price point. I'm not really a big fan of having a midfielder priced 5 million, especially if you have to start him week in, week out. But if he's mostly on your bench, it's probably fine, I'd say. I think Bruno Fernandes' captaincy will be popular this week. I definitely agree. FPL FOMO. I'm actually leaning towards captaining Bruno myself. The thing is that Man United, they don't have any fixtures midweek. He will play close to 90 minutes. He will take most set pieces for Man United, including penalties. And at the Old Trafford against Fulham, I think this is a really good fixture for Man United as well. So Bruno Fernandes, he is actually my captain at the moment. So the first 2 votes, one for Erling Haaland and one for Bruno Fernandes. So it's 50-50. So go vote in the poll. Who do you think is the best captain option for game week 24? And if you want to have your team reviewed, head over to X, post a picture of your team under my latest post, and I'll get your team up on the screen. So this is currently my team for game week 24. I have actually made 2 transfers. I went early this game week. I'm not usually a fan of going early with the transfers, but I would have been priced out if I didn't sell Anthony Gordon to bring in Bruno Fernandes. So I sold Anthony Gordon, brought in Bruno Fernandes. To afford the upgrade from Gordon to Bruno, I had to downgrade Vandenberg, a 4.5 defender from Brentford, and I brought in Mosquera. And the reason for bringing in Mosquera is the fact that Wolves, they will most probably have a double game week in game week 26. So at the moment, I will have 4 players involved in the double. So Gabriel, Timber, Rice in midfield, and Mosquera playing against Nottingham Forest and Arsenal. Neil Chisman, who would you bench taking into account the fixtures? Saka, Semenyo, or Mane? Ooh. probably Mane. So I wouldn't bench Saka. He's still a 10 million player, right, on penalties for Arsenal playing against Leeds. I would definitely start Saka this game week. Semenyo as well did not play midweek because he's not able to play in the Champions League. So Semenyo will most probably start for Man City away against Spurs. So I would start Saka and Semenyo, to be honest. Haaland, he destroys Spurs, I think so. Erling Haaland will be Irish Pit Terriers captain. It makes sense. He looked good, especially in the first half. Yesterday as well, scored a goal. Haaland captaincy, of course, it is the safest, definitely the safest option this game week as well. You will have the highest effective ownership in game week 24, so especially if you want to protect your rank, you should go Erling Haaland captaincy. So my rank at the moment is 600k, so given that we're actually past game week 20, I think it's time for taking a couple of risks if you're not satisfied with your rank. So I think this is definitely not the worst game week to go against Erling Haaland once again, but I'm not saying that Haaland is a bad captain pick for game week 24, but if you want to take a risk, there are other options as well. But FPL FOMO sent my team on Twitter, so let's go check it out. So if you're interested in having your team reviewed, head over to X, find the same post as FPL FOMO, post a picture of your team selection, and let's discuss it. Mm-hmm. 3 transfers undecided, but I might roll this game with the Lap, Palmer, big minus risks, but I may just hope for the best. Let's have a look at the team. So this is FPL FOMO's team ahead of game week 24. I still have Cunha. I'm keeping him. So, of course, Cunha, he was probably... He looked really good. It was a game week 19 where he looked like one of the best midfield options. But Cunha, he didn't really deliver as expected. But at the moment, especially given that Torgu is injured, I think we might see Cunha getting even more minutes. And I think that he potentially will start in game week 24. So if you have Cunha in your team, I think that he definitely is a keep at this point. So in goal for FPL FOMO, we have Ruff's really good fixture playing at home against Burnley, Gabriel against Leeds, Shalba at home against West Ham, Cash at home against Brentford. So no conflicting players. You don't have Jared Bowen, no Igor Thiago. So I think it makes sense starting Shalba and Cash. Bruno Fernandes, captaincy. Cole Palmer, Saka, Rice, Rodgers, Delap up front with Watkins. Of course, you know the risk with Delap. He can potentially start in game week 24. We saw that Joao Pedro, he played 90 minutes yesterday for Chelsea. So Delap, he might actually start for Chelsea this game week. But I think even though the lap starts, he will most probably see limited minutes. So I'm not a big fan of the lap, but you definitely know the risk. On the bench, Calvert-Lewin, Collins, and Robinson. So a really, really strong team. No Erling Haaland in this team. No Salah. So a lot of funds spread out with a lot of good fixtures. I actually love this midfield. I saw this team earlier today on X as well, and Bruno Fernandes, Cole Palmer, Saka, talismans for Man United, Chelsea, and Arsenal. Rice, a really good option as well, and Rodgers, a really solid FPL option as well. So I like this team. Hopefully, FPL FOMO can get a couple of green arrows going forward. I think the lap won't start, then I'll take him out before the deadline, but it will still be, I guess. Yeah, I think it's really hard to call at the moment when it comes to Chelsea. They have a lot of fixtures coming up. Joe Pedro, he has really delivered recently, so it makes sense starting Joe Pedro in game week 24 as well, giving him like 60-70 minutes, and this would probably mean that the lap plays 20 to 30 minutes. So I think it's all guesswork at this point. We don't really know who will start for Chelsea up front, but the dream would probably be the lap starting with Joe Pedro playing as their number 10, Cole Palmer on the right, Enzo Fernandez alongside Caicedo in midfield. But I think it's really hard to call the Chelsea team at the moment, considering they have a lot of fixtures coming up. Virat Kohli, salam, thanks for joining in. Let's see with this team. I definitely agree with the decision of just benching Calvert-Lewin against Arsenal. I think even though you have 3 free transfers, I think this team is strong enough this game week. So probably just wait, hold, and have 4 free transfers heading into game week 25. Hopefully you can actually save another transfer. We know at this point that there will be a double game week in game week 26. Will be either Arsenal and Wolves or Chelsea having a double game week in game week 26. So definitely makes sense to just hold your transfers at this point if you're not playing your wildcard. So let's have a quick look at this as well. So in game week 26, so if they beat Chelsea on Wednesday, so Arsenal, they are already 3-2 up and they will play at the Emirates. So the odds are in the favor of an Arsenal win in this game. So if Arsenal win against Chelsea, they will have a blank in game week 31, and this would mean a double game week 26, where Arsenal, they will play against Brentford and Wolves. So actually a really good game week for a really good double game week for Arsenal, away against Brentford, away against Wolves. Wolves playing away against Aston Villa, and of course not the best fixture playing against Arsenal, but I think we could actually take a punt on a Wolves asset for game week 26. But if Chelsea win the fixture on Wednesday against Arsenal, it's Chelsea and Everton having a double game week in game week 26. So then we will have Chelsea playing against Leeds at home and Everton away. So potentially a really good game week for Chelsea. Although I can't really see this happening, to be honest. I really think that Arsenal will win the fixture. So potentially also, of course, a double game week for Everton playing at home against Bournemouth and Everton. But at this point, it looks really likely that Arsenal and Wolves will have a double game week 26. So let's see if we have any other teams posted. So the reason why I'm doing a Thursday Q&A this evening. It's actually, I don't have the time for a Friday, the regular Friday Q&A, so that's why I'm going a bit early with a Thursday Q&A. So this is the next team posted. Same goalkeeper as me. I actually benched Sanchez this game week, at least so far. I will have a look at my own team in a minute, but Sanchez in goal, Gabriel, Tarkovsky, and Tiav. Rice, Mbumo, Rogers, Shirky, and Sar. Nice differential. And we have Jared Bowen, Erling Haaland up front. On the bench, Krupi Jr., Michele, and Anderson. I think, at least my first thought with this team is actually to play Michele over Tiav. Liverpool away. I know Liverpool, not the same team as we got used to from last season, but will Newcastle keep a clean sheet away against Liverpool? I'm not sure about this. I think I would prefer having Michele in my starting 11. Starting Sanchez makes sense, but you have Jared Bowen as well, so I think I would be tempted to actually start Dubravka and bench Sanchez. Bro, this is team. It's not your team, right? Is it? This was posted by Fahad's team. This is team. So it's your team. We're at Colley. Start Jared Bowen or Krupi Jr. I think actually I would start Jared Bowen, but bench Sanchez. At least that's what I'm doing, but I think it's kind of hard to call at this point what will happen. Jared Bowen on penalties for West Ham at the moment. They looked a bit better in game week 23. I think I would start Jared Bowen, but you can actually consider to bench Sanchez and play Dubravka against Sunderland, hoping that Burnley will keep a clean sheet against them. Krupi Jr. or Jared Bowen. As mentioned, I think I actually would start Jared Bowen, given the fact that he's quite expensive. He's nailed on. He can pick up defensive contribution points. He is on penalties for West Ham at the moment. So my advice with this team is actually to start Jared Bowen and bench Sanchez. At least that's what I'm doing, and I will have a look at my team in a minute. But I would actually consider something like Tiav on the bench to play Michele as well. Looking for Guehi to Anderson and Enzo for one of, and Enzo in for and selling Shirky. Yeah, makes sense. I really like Enzo Fernandez. He is second in line for penalties at Chelsea at the moment. We saw this in game 23 scoring a penalty. He actually scored a penalty in the Champions League as well. He took the penalty, and this was in the first half. And we know that Cole Palmer, he was subbed on in the second half. So I think Cole Palmer will see limited minutes. He will have I think they will try to like protect Cole Palmer going forward. So There might be some odd benchings for Palmer and some early subs, and Enzo Fernandez will most probably play most minutes going forward. So Enzo Fernandez, a really good transfer in. Shirky, is he a definite sell at the moment? I'm not really sure, but out of the players in your midfield at the moment, he's probably closest to being a sell. Should I take a hit? I think this team is probably good enough for game week 24. No reason to take a hit. So did you spend all your transfers? I don't really think that Ryan Shirky to Enzo Fernandez is worth a hit ahead of game week 24. I would just play Shirky, to be honest. He can potentially start and do well for Man City. Away against Spurs. So let's see. We have some interesting fixtures this evening as well. Aston Villa playing against Salzburg. Let's have a look at their team. They will... Looks like we actually have a rest for a couple of players. So Morgan Rogers, he is rested. Matty Cash as well. Esri Konsa on the bench. We have Watkins starting, Buendia starting. So Aston Villa, they are resting a couple of players this evening. Nottingham Forest. Finally, a rest for Morgan Gibbs-White. I actually watched the game last Thursday. Nottingham Forest playing in Europe, and Morgan Gibbs-White, he played 90 minutes, and he played 90 minutes once again this weekend. So a rest for Morgan Gibbs-White. He's on the bench for Nottingham Forest. I think that if you're on a free hit, especially, I think that Gibbs-White is a really good option from Nottingham Forest, especially seeing that he is rested this evening. But I will pay close attention to the Aston Villa game this evening. It's starting in a couple of minutes. Aston Villa against Salzburg. So the team is Martinez in goal. We have Bugard on the right back. Lindelof, the former Man United centre back, he is starting. Mings as well. Ding on the left back. Hemmings, Onana in the double pivot. And we have Elliott, Buendia, Sancho with Ollie Watkins up front. No Tammy Abraham for Aston Villa this evening. Is maybe ready for Premier League this weekend. He's probably not able to play European games for Aston Villa. I haven't really paid that much attention to Tammy Abraham, to be honest. So, Virat Kohli, I think I would just keep your team as it is when it comes to Krupi Jr. So, even though the fixture against Wolves looks good on paper, Wolves, they are actually one of the best defensive teams, even though they conceded 2 goals against Man City. They are one of the teams with the best defensive stats from the last 6 game weeks. This could potentially be a tough game for Bournemouth. So, Krupi Jr. on the bench makes sense. What I actually would consider is to bench. I said this a couple of times, I'm sorry, but I would actually consider benching Sanchez and starting Dubravka. So I don't really like having my forwards playing against my goalkeeper. So we have Jared Bowen playing against Sanchez. You can potentially avoid this by starting Dubravka this game week. So this is my team at the moment. As mentioned, starting Dubravka, Sanchez on the bench. I have Jared Bowen in as well. Van Hecke at home against Everton. Hopefully, Brighton can keep a clean sheet against Everton. Double Arsenal defense with Gabriel and Timber. And Timber, he did really well against Leeds last time. Enzo Fernandez against West Ham. Rice against Leeds. Rodgers and Bruno Fernandes. Bruno, he is actually my captain at the moment. Up front, Igor Thiago, Erling Haaland, and Jared Bowen. So Igor Thiago, tough games coming up, but he is nailed on for Brentford on penalties. So I captained Igor Thiago in game week 23. Really, really disappointing, of course. 2 points from Igor Thiago, blank. But he can potentially do well going forward. Is Saliba good? I think Saliba is a solid option. The thing is that I think definitely that Gabriel and Timber are the best options from Arsenal at the moment. I think the Timber owners, they have been a bit unlucky recently. I saw a post on X today as well saying that Timber, he is actually the defender with the highest expected goal involvement so far this season. So a bit unlucky. He could actually had a goal or actually a couple of goals in game week 23, but no returns from Timber. 1 point, a bit disappointing. So against Man United, he was really, really close to scoring, but it was an own goal. He touched the heel of the Man United defender. Hello from Malaysia. Hello, thanks for joining in. How are you, and are you ready for game week 24? I'm not really sure why I didn't remember the name of Lisandro Martinez. Just fell out, but of course it was Lisandro Martinez scoring the first goal for Arsenal. It was an own goal, really close for Timber, but after taking a couple of other views of that goal, it was clear it was Lisandro own goal. Haaland captaincy. I think Haaland captaincy is not the worst option. I can't really see Erling Haaland being benched in back-to-back game weeks, so I think he will start against Spurs. He did score midweek yesterday for Man City. He definitely is the safest option considering his effective ownership. So if you think Erling Haaland will do well, he is definitely a solid captain option this game week. Should I sell Saka? And if so, Bruno or Mbumo. I think first priority for me would be Bruno Fernandes. At least that was my transfer this game week. So I had Anthony Gordon. I could potentially have just sold Anthony Gordon to bring in Mbumo, but I decided that I really wanted Bruno Fernandes, and so I actually made a double transfer. Is it worth it to take a -4 to get Enzo Fernandez and Bruno Fernandes? I'm good. How are you? All good here. So Enzo Fernandez and Bruno Fernandes, but you're transferring out 2 midfielders, right? To bring in 1 midfielder and 1 forward. So you need an additional transfer to make that happen. I definitely think that Phil Foden is a sell. He has been benched back to back, so I don't really think that it's just because Guardiola wants to rest Phil Foden. I think that it's something more than just a rest. I think he's lost a bit patience. Of course, Phil Foden out of form. He hasn't really performed recently, so selling Phil Foden at this point makes sense. Bringing in Bruno Fernandes, I definitely like the Phil Foden to Bruno Fernandes move. Enzo Fernandez in, Jared Bowen out. The thing is that Jared Bowen, he is actually still a really good FPL asset. Will play close to 90 minutes. He can potentially pick up defensive contribution points. He took the last penalty for West Ham as well. They have a kind of a tough fixture playing against Chelsea, of course, in game week 24, but in game week 25, West Ham, they play against Burnley, so this could potentially be a really good fixture for Jared Bowen. So I'm not really sure if Jared Bowen is a sell, especially not for a -4 hit, in my opinion. So the games are underway. We have a couple of Premier League teams in action this evening in the Europa League. Aston Villa playing at home against Salzburg. A couple of players getting a well-deserved rest. I'm really happy to see that Morgan Rogers is not starting for Aston Villa this evening. So it's Elliot, Buendia, Sancho with Ollie Watkins up front. Nottingham Forest resting a couple of players as well. Morgan Gibbs-White is on the bench. Can you look at my team? I replied to your post. Definitely, I will have a look at your team. I actually need reminders when it comes to taking a look at the teams posted on X. Terribly sorry about that, but just let me know in the chat if you post your team on X. So if you're interested in having your team reviewed, head over to X, post a picture of your team selection, and we'll get it up on the screen. We had a couple of teams up already. The next team is from Luca Thompson. Oops, missed the comment. So 3 free transfers for million in the bank. Not sure what to do. Maybe Fault Mother to Joao Pedro. Maybe sell Saka as well. So let's have a look at the team. Fault Mother, I think at this point he's probably a sell, considering the fact that he hasn't really got that many minutes recently. Looks like Wissa is the preferred number 9 for Newcastle at the moment, so Fault Mother definitely want to consider selling. Rodgers or Enzo Fernandez? I would be tempted to say Rodgers, but seeing that he is rested this evening, but I think Enzo Fernandez will start, and Chelsea, they have some lovely features coming up. Enzo Fernandez, he is second in line for penalties for Chelsea. And Cole Palmer, he is a minutes risk. I don't really see Cole Palmer playing 90 minutes week in, week out. So at the moment, I like them both. I actually have both Enzo Fernandez and Rodgers in my team, but my favorite to transfer in is probably Enzo Fernandez. Good evening, sir. Will double game week 26 carry over the weekend and slot into the midweek before game week 27? Yes, it will. So game week 26 will go as planned, but there will be midweek fixtures for most probably. There will be a midweek fixture for Arsenal and Wolves ahead of game week 27. But this is Luca Thompson's team. Let's see if we can get all of the team in the screen. On the bench, we have actually a really strong bench for Luca. Anderson, the Fulham centre back. We have Holtmada on the bench as well. Let's just start with the goalkeeper. It's Leno playing against Man United. I think I would be tempted to actually start Roofs, seeing that you have Roofs in goal. Spidey, hey, how you doing? All good. Thanks for joining in, Spidey. So if it's between Leno and Roofs in goal, I think I would be tempted to bench Leno and play Roofs. So Man United, they have looked really threatening recently. They have a strong attacking force with Mbumo, they have Cunha, Ahmad, decent creative player as well. Of course, Bruno Fernandes. Don't really see Fulham keeping a clean sheet at the Old Trafford, so seeing that you have Roofs, I think I would start him. So Shalba in goal. Shalba in defense. Good fixture at home against West Ham. I have Jared Bowen, so I'm really hoping that West Ham can score against Chelsea, but seeing that you don't have any West Ham attackers, I would definitely just start Shalaba. So Van de Ven is in as well. Not the best fixture, of course, playing against Man City. Don't really think that Spurs will keep a clean sheet this game week. So I think with this team, I would potentially be tempted to make a couple of transfers, probably. Faultmother, he can be sold. Probably Van de Ven as well. But let's have a look at this later. So Bruno G. So last season playing away against Liverpool, terrible fixture, but this season can be a really good fixture for Newcastle playing against Liverpool. So things that this can potentially be like a 2-2, 2-3, 3-3 game. So can potentially be a lot of goals in this fixture. Saka, we have Enzo Fernandez captaincy. I have actually considered Enzo Fernandez as my captain. I talked about this in my team selection video. So if you're interested in watching the team selection video with my captain selection and taking a look at the opponents of the best captain options, the link is in the description down below. Wilson is in, playing against Man United, Rodgers, Erling Haaland and Calvert-Lewin. I think with this team, I would be really tempted to make a couple of transfers, to be honest. Mother, he can potentially be sold. Van de Fan can potentially be sold as well. So Mother out, Calvert-Lewin on the bench. It kind of depends how much you have in the bank. Probably you said this in your comments. Let's have a look. You had a lot of funds, didn't you, Luca? So with 4 million in the bank, I would be tempted. So Calvert-Lewin on the bench, Mother to Evan Nilsson or to Joao Pedro. Van de Fan. You can potentially bring in a couple of Bournemouth players with this team. Hill, Evan Nilsson. Could this be a good... Johnny Boy, sell Mane or Raul in draft mode for Strand Larsen. No budget, so can do either. Also, would you rather Solanke or Strand Larsen long run? So the thing is that I would actually wait a couple of game week to see how Strand Larsen sells in before selling him. Raul Jimenez is still playing, right? Starting up front for Fulham, so not the worst option. I think I would just keep Raul Jimenez for now, to be honest, if this is a draft mode. Football and stuff. How was last game week? Also, I have a massive question from football and stuff. So last game week was decent for me. I think it was 48 points, so a green arrow for me in game week 23. I had Jared Bowen, so a really good start to the game week. Really disappointing. I had a triple up on Arsenal with Timber, Gabriel, and Rice, all of them getting 1 point each. So could have been a lot better, especially Timber. He was really close to scoring, but 48 points, green arrow. Happy days, I guess. So let me know what this massive question is. Hopefully I can help you. Yeah, I'll start roofs. Why not keep Saka for the double game week? Arsenal, they host Wigan in the FA Cup and he'll be rested before the double game week against Wolves. He'll be heavily captained. I think that when it comes to Saka, I think that at this point is just a bit too expensive. I definitely backed tripling up on Arsenal, especially seeing that they will most probably double in game week 26. So triple Arsenal, yes, but is Saka really necessary? I'm not sure. 10 million. I think Rice actually is better value at this point. So I made one transfer and 1.9 in the bank. My team is Raya, Gabriel, Tiav, O'Reilly, Saka, Enzo Fernandez, Bruno, Soboslai, and so Lefe. Up front, Holland, Thiago. Bench, Esteve, Guiu, and Michael Keane, I guess. No clue what to do. Any tips? I think Soboslai potentially can be someone to consider selling at this point, especially seeing that Frimpong is injured. I think Soboslai will play in defense going forward for Liverpool, so I think Soboslai is a sell at the moment. Who is the best defender for Van de Ven replacement? I think going for a Bournemouth defender. Seeing that you already have Chalobah in, I think. Let's see, Senesi or potentially Hill would be my preferred options. So Van de Ven replacement, Senesi or Hill. Would you do O'Reilly to Chalobah, Michael Keane to Senesi for a -4? I'm not sure if I would do both of them for a -4, potentially. I like both transfers. So O'Reilly, he hasn't really delivered recently. He will most probably see limited minutes going forward. So O'Reilly out makes sense. Keane as well, with Branthwaite returning from injury. He will see limited minutes. So I like both options, but do you really need both Senesi and Chalobah this game week, or can you potentially make one of the moves this game week and the next one ahead of game week 25? So no goals in the Aston Villa game, still 0-0, 20 minutes played against Salzburg. Celtic, they are actually 3-0 up against the Dutch side Utrecht. Nottingham Forest 2-0 up. Own goal and goal from Igor Jesus, assist from Ryan Yates. So no injuries in the Nottingham Forest game so far, no substitutions. Same goes for Aston Villa. No injuries or substitutions in this game as well. So a rest, nice rest for Morgan Rogers. Aston Villa playing this evening against Salzburg. So let's update to see if there are any more teams. So if you're interested in having your team reviewed, head over to X, post a picture under my latest post. We'll get it up on the screen. Next team, benching dilemma from Cantona Kicker. Is it right to bench Tarkovsky? So let's have a look. Is it right to bench Tarkovsky with this team? So let me know in the chat. Is it right to bench Tarkovsky? Is Raya in goal? Let's see if we can get this a bit. That's probably the best we can do. This is Red or Dead Steam, right? Cantona Kicker on X. Thanks for joining in. So, looking at my team, I need a defensive transfer. Yep, probably I like both of your transfers. Which is more priority? Just need to scroll up. Sorry. Probably O'Reilly to Chalobah would be my priority this game week, especially given that Chelsea, they have really good fixtures, and the fact that the Chelsea defense actually have high ownership. So if Chelsea keep a clean sheet against West Ham, they can potentially hurt your rank. So O'Reilly to Shalba, really good transfer. Is it necessary to take a -4 for Keane to Senesi? I'm not really sure, but I think long term this potentially can be a really good transfer. Senesi, we know that he will pick up defensive contributions most game weeks, but my first priority would be O'Reilly to Shalba. Hey, I have posted my team on your thread on Twitter. Can you have a look? Kantna kicker. I definitely can, and the team is actually on the screen at the moment. So this is Red or Dead's team. Things that he's a bit unsure about the benching decisions this game week, and benching Tarkovsky this game week, is this the right decision? Let me know in the chat. I'll give my opinion in a minute. Hey, would you do Foden and Dorgu to Enzo Fernandez and Gabriel for a -4? Yes, definitely. Really good options. Foden, I think that he definitely is a sell at this point. He actually got benched in game week 23. He got benched midweek in the Champions League as well. So I think that it's not just a rest for Phil Foden. I think it's a bit out of favor at the moment. So Phil Foden out. Yes, Dorgu, he is injured. So bringing in Enzo Fernandez and Gabriel, I think even if it's for a -4, I think those are really good moves. Football and stuff, please read my above questions. My question is in my above comment. Also with the transfers, who did I start? So we have another team. I'm terribly sorry for missing your comment, football and stuff. My team is Verbruggen, Sanchez, O'Reilly, Thiav, Anderson, Van de Ven, Senesi in defense. In midfield, we have Schade, Jorginho, Rutter, Phil Foden, Saka, Garner. Up front, Jared Bowen, Thiago, and Holland. I have 1.2 in the bank and 3 free transfers. What should I do? So let's see. With this team, you can potentially... You have Sanchez and Jared Bowen, so conflicting. Your goalkeeper playing against your forward can potentially bench Sanchez, but you would have to start for Bruggen this game week at home against Everton. I think I probably would start for Bruggen, to be honest. At least that's what I'm doing. I'm starting Dubravka this game week. O'Reilly in defense. You can potentially double up on the Brighton defense with Verbruggen and Van Hecke. Decent fixture for Senesi as well. So you have a lot of solid options in defense and in midfield, of course. If you want to keep Saka, he is potentially a captain option this game week, playing against Leeds. Garner is a solid option. Jared Bowen up front. The thing is that a triple up on Brighton, I'm not really sure about this. Jorginho, Rutter, he can potentially be sold. Thiago, Erling Haaland, Jared Bowen, all nailed on penalties for their respective teams. So your forwards are fine. Garner, decent option. Saka. Jorginho, Rutter, not really sure. Phil Foden, possibly a sell. I think Schade is a solid option. Nice differential, but there are a couple of options in this, couple of players in this team, football and stuff, that I would like to get rid of, to be honest. So O'Reilly, potentially a sell. Jorginho, Rutter, and Phil Foden, all of them are potentially players that I would like to get rid of in the near future. But let's not forget that on the screen at the moment we have Red or Dead's team. So he asked the question, should Tarkovsky be benched? Let's have a look. It's a double up on the Arsenal defense with Raya in goal, Gabriel, Shalaba playing against West Ham, and Fulham for Harry Maguire. I haven't really seen Harry Maguire, so nice to see a differential. So it's a triple up on Man United with Harry Maguire, Bruno Fernandes, and Mbumo. Elliot Anderson at home against Crystal Palace. I have actually benched Elliot Anderson in my own FPL team the last couple of game weeks, and he has got like 5 points, 6 points, or is it 5? 5 points in game week 23, 5 or 6 points in game week 22. So I have benched a couple of Elliot Anderson points recently, but a solid option. Semenyo is in. And we have Erling Haaland and Thiago up front. Tarkovsky, should he be benched? I don't really see which player he should put on the bench instead of Tarkovsky with this team, to be honest. I think I would start Gabriel, Shalba, and Maguire with Tarkovsky first bench. So Calvert-Lewin against Arsenal. Seeing that you have a double up on the Arsenal defense, definitely makes sense to have Calvert-Lewin on the bench. So I think this team is good to go. So let me know in the chat. Do you disagree? Do you think this team needs any improvements, or do you disagree with the benching order? But I definitely think that having Tarkovsky on the bench with this team makes sense. Double up on Arsenal against Leeds, Shalaba against West Ham, Maguire at home against Fulham. Tata to Forest, here we go. Yeah, there have been some interesting transfers recently. Mateta to Forest. I was actually a bit surprised. I really thought that he was going to join Juventus, the Italian side, but Mateta to Forest to replace Chris Wood, and we have Strand Larsen. To Crystal Palace. Right? Correct me if I'm wrong. I think that's at least that's what the last thing I read when it comes to transfers. Mods, or are there others? I think I probably missed a message. Let me just scroll. Hey, would you do Phil Foden? Yeah, that was the question. I think this makes really sense, to be honest. Phil Foden, Dorgu to Enzo Fernandez and Gabriel for a -4. Or are other options like Shalaba in defense or Rodgers better? My issue is that I have no Chelsea, so no Chelsea. Foden, Dorgu. I think Gabriel probably is first priority, and seeing that you have Enzo Fernandez with these transfers, I don't really think that Chalba is a must. The Chelsea defense, of course, they have really good fixtures, but it's not like their defense have been really impressive recently. So Enzo Fernandez will probably be first priority if you want to cover Chelsea. I talked about this a couple of times. He is actually second in line for penalties after Cole Palmer, and Cole Palmer is carrying a couple of injuries, so I can't see Cole Palmer seeing limited minutes going forward. So don't really expect Cole Palmer to play in 90 minutes week in, week out. So Enzo Fernandez, like we saw yesterday in the Champions League, he can potentially get penalty goals for Chelsea. So I still, even though I get what you're thinking, but I still like the first option that you mentioned in the chat a couple of minutes ago. Let's have a look at the fixtures. Aston Villa, they actually 1-0 down. Lindelof, the former Man United centre back, own goal. So Aston Villa struggling at home against Salzburg. Let's have a look. Are there any injuries? So no, Watkins still on the pitch. No transfers, no injuries for Aston Villa. 35 minutes played. I'm really hoping that Morgan Rogers will not get on the pitch until like the 70th, probably 80th minute. But let's see what happens. Nottingham Forest still 2-0 up. There has actually been an injury in this game. Nottingham Forest, Ibrahim Sangare is down. Looks like Sangare will be back. Let me know if you're watching that game. What happened to Sangare? It's not that this injury would have that much of an impact on FPL, of course, but there are a couple of players in action for Nottingham Forest that can potentially have impact on FPL. We have Sels in goal, Milenkovic starting. We have Williams. We have Ndoye as well. Their striker, Igor Jesus, starting up front. He is actually one of the players that has scored so far this Europa League Thursday. So Nottingham Forest 2-0 against Ferencvarosi. That was terrible. Sorry about that. Ferencvaros, probably. Aston Villa 1-0 down against Salzburg. And we actually had a transfer in the 35th minute. Ollie Watkins out. Morgan Elliott Rogers is on the pitch. I'm not watching the game. I didn't really see what happened, but please let me know if you're watching the Aston Villa game. What happened to Ollie Watkins and why did he get transferred out in the 35th minute? And if you're interested, go vote in the captain poll as well. Bruno Fernandes is actually, let's see. There we go. Bruno Fernandes, he is actually the favorite in the poll. 61% for Bruno Fernandes, 22 Erling Haaland, 17 Enzo Fernandes, and no votes for the other category. So if you're captaining another player than Enzo Fernandes, Erling Haaland, and Bruno Fernandes, please let me know in the chat. But in addition, please let me know what happened to Ollie Watkins. So Ollie Watkins must be an injury, right? Subbed off in the 35th minute. Morgan Rogers, he is in. Must be an injury to Ollie Watkins, but I'm actually not watching the game at the moment. So please let me know in the chat if you're watching the game. What football team do you support? So my favorite team is actually Man United. I think that your your profile picture kind of tells me that you support Brighton, right? Is this week a good week for a wildcard? Ben Daniels. I definitely think this week is a really, really good week for a wildcard. There are a couple of fixture swings for Chelsea, Bournemouth, and Man United. So they have had a couple of tough fixtures, especially Man United, of course, and Bournemouth as well. Chelsea, they have had a couple of good fixtures recently, but from game week 24 and onwards, their fixtures looks really, really good. So you can potentially play your wildcard this game week, take advantage of the fixture swing. And my advice is to triple up on Arsenal because they will most probably have a double in double game week 26. So I have actually made a video about what I believe is the best wildcard route for game week 26. So if you're interested, the link is in the description down below. Of all the players, of all the players, only like 200k people will captain Fernandes. The majority will definitely go for Erling Haaland as usual. So going for Bruno Fernandes, even though I think that he is a really good option this game week, it's definitely a punt. The safest option will, when we consider effective ownership, the safest option will definitely be Erling Haaland this game week as well. But I think that going for Bruno Fernandes, and I'm leaning towards Bruno this game week, I think it definitely makes sense. Football and stuff, do you have a question for me from a Brighton fan point of view? I have a question when it comes to Mitoma. What happened to the really good FPL asset from the 24-25 season? So the last couple of Brighton games I've seen he's played out left, he's like drifting really wide, and he hasn't really had the confidence to take on his man. So he just receives the ball and plays it into the middle. I don't really recognize Mitoma from the 24-25 season. So what's happened to Mitoma? I know that he has had a couple of injuries, but I was really, really disappointed when I watched Mitoma. I think it was in game week 21, game week 22 probably. Do you think I should risk playing Michael Keane for one more week or play it safe and play Tiav? I think the thing is with Michael Keane is that he can potentially just start this game week and do well. Things that he can potentially be benched and not play at all. So given that your other option is Tiav, I would probably just go Michael Keane. It's not like Newcastle have a really good fixture this game week. So away against Liverpool, I think actually I would go for Michael Keane, to be honest. Agnieszka, thanks for joining in. Would you bench boost with Tahiti? Who's that? Would you bench boost with Tahiti? I'm not really sure. Is this like, are we playing the same game? I guess we are, because it's probably Shalaba first on your bench, but who is Kukilich and Keplerum? Tahiti. I'm not really sure, to be honest, Agnieszka. So I'm terribly sorry. I can't really say yes or no to that question at this point. Mitoma is class, he's magic and a game changer. He had a bad injury, and so our only proper winger on the pitch was Minte. So who did we pass the ball to? Minte. Over time we became. Yeah, I watched that game. It was like the game where Minte played 20 minutes. I think Minte, he looked really selfish. Can't really remember their opponent. It was probably game week 21 or game week 22. Brighton actually looked pretty good. I think that Minte is actually a solid option, especially if he was looking likely to play 90 minutes week in, week out. But Basically, it's hard for Mitoma if he hasn't got Minte on the other side because the teams double up on him. Yeah, right. Probably a good point because if Minte is not on the pitch, they can focus on Mitoma. Makes sense. Things with Brighton this season, I haven't really had any interest in Brighton assets other than Van Hecke because Welbeck is not really nailed on right because of his history with injuries and stuff like that. I think we beat Everton. Yeah, I think Brighton will take this fixture, but the thing is that all of a sudden it looks like Rutter was like nailed on as the number 9 for Brighton. All of a sudden, Welbeck is starting, and Rutter is. It's not like he is like playing back in the number 10. He's all of a sudden benched. So same goes for Minte. He looked like a really good option back in game week 18, but he has been really frustrating for his owners. And another question for football and stuff, is Welbeck definitely nailed on to take penalties while he's on the pitch, and who is second in line? Is Palmer an option from Mehdi Sanad? He's definitely an option, but I think there are better options, to be honest. Given Cole Palmer's price, so premium price tag is not definitely nailed on to start, and he will definitely not play 90 minutes. So I think at this point, Cole Palmer is probably an avoid, and I think that Enzo Fernandez is a better option for now. We need to manage Welbeck's minutes. Yeah, that's what I thought. Rutter is so bad at striker. He is a cam. Yeah, I think I agree with this. He's more like a number 10. I loved Rutter last season because he blended our attack in midfield together. Rutter is incredible behind Welbeck. So even though I'm not a Brighton fan, at least it looks like we see the same things. So while you're here, we have an expert on Brighton. What about the Kuiper? He had really good attacking stats from game week. Was it game week 16, game week 17, all the way until game week 20? So 3 or 4 game weeks, he was actually the most attacking defender. But what happened to the Kuiper? Also, Welbeck might be on penalties. It's either him or Pascal Gross. Then second is James Milner. Third, the Kuiper, is he actually on penalties as well? Wow, nice. Defender can potentially take penalties for Brighton. So injuries to Welbeck, injuries to Pascal Gross, and then we should all bring in the Kuiper. So it's halftime in the Europa League. Aston Villa 1-0 down against Salzburg. We had a surprising substitution in the Aston Villa game. So if you're watching Aston Villa, please let me know in the chat what's happened to Ollie Watkins. So in the 35th minute, Ollie Watkins, he was taken out, and Morgan Rogers, he was brought on. Forest, they are 2-0 up against their opponents. I'm not trying to pronounce that name once again. Morgan Gibbs White, the most interesting FPL assets being rested for that fixture. So by the way, Gross is nailed on 90 minutes and takes all set pieces. He looked really good the last time I watched Brighton. It was probably in game week 22, game week 23. He can potentially pick up defensive contribution points as well. I think that Pascal Gross potentially can be a nice differential going forward. I haven't actually even checked his price. Let's have a quick look. $5.5 for Pascal Gross. Potentially on penalties when Danny Welbeck is not on the pitch. I think that Pascal Gross is probably not talked about enough in the FPL community, to be honest. Let's get him up on the screen, you guys. Let's see. So Pascal Gross potentially on penalties with Welbeck not on the pitch, according to football and stuff. They have Everton at home, Crystal Palace at home. Crystal Palace, even though this is a grey fixture, we know that Crystal Palace, they are actually struggling at the moment. So this could be a really good fixture for Brighton. They play away against Aston Villa. Not the best fixture. I think actually Aston Villa, they are a bit underrated. They are top 3. And I think that this could be a tough game for Brighton. They play away against Brentford and then at home against Nottingham Forest. So really good fixtures for Brighton coming up. Pascal Gross, 5.5 midfielder on all set pieces and probably on penalties if Danny Welbeck is not on the pitch. He can pick up defensive contributions. So the last fixture, the last game I watched Brighton, it was like Pascal Gross. He was all over the pitch. He was like on the right-hand side, swinging in crosses, and all of a sudden he was in the box defending, picking up blocks and interceptions. So Pascal Gross actually a really good differential for the upcoming game weeks. You should do watch-alongs. Yeah, something to consider. I have actually done a couple of watch-alongs. Should probably consider doing a couple of more. I really enjoy watch-alongs. The thing is that I had a couple of watch-alongs, but the thing is that I had a couple of FPL assets in those games. It was Monday night fixtures. I remember especially one of the watch-alongs I had. It was the first one. It was game week. I don't really remember which game week it was, but it was West Ham playing at home against Brentford. I had both Jared Bowen and Paqueta in this fixture. I was really looking forward to the game. Last game, I was already on a green arrow. Was really looking forward to Jared Bowen, Paqueta doing well against Brentford. Brentford, they had actually struggled ahead of that game, but I think Igor Thiago scored at least a brace. I think it was 2-0 for Brentford. Just watched your Wildcard video and was just wondering if I wanted to take Haaland out. What strikers or other upgrades would you recommend? So the thing is that if you don't really want Erling Haaland in your team, it's possible to go for Evan Nilsson, the Bournemouth striker. I don't really mention him in the Wildcard video. But given the fixtures, he has looked better recently. So if you want to spend more in midfield, like going for Cole Palmer, or if you want to have Saka for Arsenal's double in double game with 26, it's definitely an option to go for Evan Nilsson up front and ditching Erling Haaland. So my advice would be, if you're going without Erling Haaland, I would probably have a Man City midfielder like Semenyo in my team just to cover their attack. Probably. You should do one tomorrow. Thanks a lot. Actually, I usually have those Q&A streams on Friday nights, always the night before the deadline. The thing is that I'm actually have other commitments tomorrow, so I won't be able to have my regular Friday night Q&A. So that's actually the reason why this is a Thursday night Q&A, but I will consider, thanks a lot for the encouragements, football and stuff. I will definitely consider having more Q&As. It's just good for the channel. So of course, more activity, more people, more views, more subscribers, more watch time. So of course, that's a really good idea. Philip, thanks for joining in. Hi, my team is Sanchez in goal, Gabriel Timber, Sanchez, Gabriel Timbers, 2 defenders, Bruno Fernandes, Saka, Enzo Fernandes, Anthony Gordon, and Rogers up front, Haaland, Thiago. Would you rather take a -4 to Gordon to Mbumo, Saka to Rice to fund it, or would you roll? I really like, to be honest, I really like the idea of, sorry, I meant Saturday. I can potentially have, I will really consider Saturday features. I will consider having a watch along on Saturday. There is a game on Monday night in gameweek24 as well, right? So I can potentially have a watch along on Monday night football as well. I definitely will consider. Thanks for the encouragement from football and stuff. But let's try to just answer this question. Gordon to Mbumo and Saka to Rice to fund it. -4 to sell Saka. The thing is that I really like Rice. I like the Arsenal triple up. You probably would like to have a triple up on Arsenal, considering that they will have a double in game week 26. So Gabriel, Timber, Rice, it's probably good enough. Of course, I'm not usually a fan of taking a hit, but I really like this one. So Anthony Gordon, a really frustrating asset. I actually sold Anthony Gordon this game week myself, so I will put my team on the screen in a minute, but I sold Anthony Gordon to bring in Bruno Fernandes. So for a -4, it's not ideal, but I think I'm actually leaning towards saying that this -4 is probably worth it. Monirita, bonsoir. Thanks for joining in. Anything else for the Brighton experts? So if anyone has any questions when it comes to Brighton, we have actually a Brighton fan in the chat. So if you have any questions about Brighton assets, shoot in the chat. Hold Van Dijk or sell for Shalba? Probably sell for Shalba. I think that Van Dijk, he was like one of the most popular transfers in around game week 14, game week 15. Slow start for Van Dijk, but he has actually picked up some returns recently. He did well in the Champions League as well. I think he got like 3 assists yesterday, but is he worth the outlay? I'm not really sure, to be honest, but at least I think that having a Chelsea defender could be really good going forward. So considering that you will save some funds as well, it's probably worth it. I'm also an FPL pro. We have football and stuff in the chat. He knows stuff about Brighton and he is an FPL pro as well. Nice. So shoot some questions in the chat and we'll try to answer. Philip, thanks. Great, thank you. No worries. Thing is that you only had two defenders in your team. So it's Sanchez in goal, Gabriel Timber, but who is your third defender? My third defender is Dalo. Sorry, yeah. No reason to say you're sorry, Dalo. I think he is a solid option going forward. Solid features for Man United coming up. I think that he probably is one of the most nailed on players for Man United in defense. He is versatile as well. He can play in a couple of positions. Can play right, can play left. So the law is a solid option, especially after the Dorgu injury. He can potentially play on the wing as well. So the games are soon underway in the Europa League. I haven't really checked. I will go have a look, but if you're watching the Aston Villa game, please let me know what happened to Ollie Watkins. He was subbed off in the 35th minute. I have asked this question a couple of times, so we should probably head over to X to see if there are any updates on Ollie Watkins. Ooh, first post, bring in Watkins as a differential in FPL, and he picks up an hamstring injury. So Watkins subbed off with hamstring injury from FPL Olympian. Tammy Abraham is he an option? Ollie Watkins forced off for Aston Villa. Lucas Dean approached Watkins and he walked down the touchline and mouthed hamstring. Ooh, so it's definitely an injury for Ollie Watkins. Andy, let's talk FPL. Watkins has subbed after picking up an injury. Not sure how bad it is. Let's see what Unai Emery says. So, ooh, big blow for Aston Villa. Just get this out. Who is your favorite FPL YouTuber you can't say yourself? I It's probably the one that I mentioned like 2 minutes ago. FPL Andy is probably the one that I like listening to the most. I think that I actually watched the Fantasy Football Scouts show on Tuesdays. Like this was like 7 to 8 years ago. I think it was called Scoutcast, and he was like one of the members. And I really enjoyed listening to him. And once he's set up his own channel, I I can't really say that I'm a regular listener or have been, but at least when it comes to deadline streams and stuff like that, he is the go-to YouTube FPL person for me, at least. Tuvelo, I got Mbumo as my captain, but then I remembered Man United have Fulham next. They're solid in a low block, so I'm not really confident Mbumo will score. So Mbumo, he is actually one of the bookies' favorite to score this game week. So in the graphic on the right hand side, you can see that when it comes to anytime goal scorer, we have Haaland. He is the favorite. Ekitike is next, but he is followed by Mbumo. 40% chance of an Mbumo goal against Fulham. The thing is that I think all it takes for Man United is an early goal, and I think this can be a really good fixture for Man United. Of course, Fulham, I totally get what you're saying. They have a reputation of defending well in a low block. They have a really good shot stopper in Bernd Leno as well. So if they can force their opponents to shoot from out wide and from range, they can potentially keep a clean sheet, but I think that every game has its own, like, I'm not really sure how to put it, but I think it's a bit unlucky if you go for Mbumo captain and if Fulham keep a clean sheet against Man United in this form. So I still think that Mbumo is a solid option. Of course, Bruno Fernandes, he has a lot of routes to points. I would prefer having Bruno Fernandes considering that he is on most set pieces and penalties for Man United. Can pick up defensive contributions as well. So Bruno Fernandes would be my priority captain, but I think Mbumo is a decent punt as well. The bookies are clueless. They have Erling Haaland as their favorite against Spurs, 52%. Arsenal are the favorites to keep a clean sheet. Sunderland are next in line for their home game against Burnley. And we have Man United. They are actually on top 3 for any time, or not any time, but for keeping a clean sheet this game week. The bookies are clueless. Rodrigo Gonzalez, what happened to Watkins? Just tuned in. So Ollie Watkins, he was subbed off for Aston Villa, subbed off in the 35th minute with a hamstring injury. So potentially can be out for weeks. We don't really know at this point, but we will have more information probably this evening after the game, or definitely tomorrow ahead of game week 24. But Ollie Watkins, probably not an FPL option anymore. Let's see how they line up in the second half. Rumors about Aston Villa playing with Rodgers up front, but the game is underway. It's actually Aston Villa, they are struggling this evening. They're 2-0 down against Salzburg. So no goals for Aston Villa, 2 for Salzburg. So Matikash, he is brought on for George Hemmings. So already 2 transfers made for Aston Villa. We definitely know at this point that one of the transfers was forced by an injury to Ollie Watkins. So let's have a look at Nottingham Forest as well. So the game has started, second half is underway. Still 2-0 for Nottingham Forest. Morgan Gibbs-White still on the bench, so no substitutions for Nottingham Forest so far. Jesus header wide. I think he potentially can at some point be a solid option, potentially for a free hit in game week 24 as well. Especially if he's not playing 90 minutes this evening, he's probably a good free hit option for game week 24. But Morgan Gibbs-White would probably be my preferred option, seeing that he is still on the bench. Do you use FPL review? Also, what is FPL review? I don't really use FPL review. I'm not 100% sure what it is, but I think it's like you post your team ID into FPL review and you get like an AI score and predicted points, I guess. I might be wrong, to be honest. FPL review, I think it's something in along those lines, at least. So this is my team for game week 24. I usually have a Friday night Q&A. I have had a Friday night Q&A ahead of. I actually have had a Q&A ahead of every game week so far, but will not be able to host a Q&A tomorrow because I have other commitments. So this is why the Q&A is on a Thursday. I actually had a quick Q&A yesterday as well. Really lovely FPL chat yesterday. So if you're interested, please subscribe to the channel. So I will record my game week 24 video, my last game week 24 video in a minute, and I will watch the rest of the European games. So thanks all for joining in. Oh, sorry. I thought we got some news about Watkins, but it was just old news. I just read that Watkins was out for 2 months, but this is nothing confirmed. So wait for more news on Ollie Watkins. He was subbed off in the first half with a hamstring injury. Not really sure for how long he will be out. Morgan Rogers, he is on the pitch, subbed in the 35th minute. Hopefully he will not be injured as well. But I was just saying that I usually have Friday night Q&As, so if you're interested, subscribe to the channel. I post weekly team selection videos and wildcard and free hit drafts as well. So if you're interested, subscribe to the channel. So best of luck for game week 24. And have a lovely weekend. Joshi, thoughts about Evan Nilsson or Ahmad? I think I would prefer Evan Nilsson given the fixtures. Ahmad, good option, but the thing is that when it comes to Man United, they have other really good options as well. So at some point, we might actually triple up on United. And having Ahmad in your squad can actually block other really good Man United options. So Bruno Fernandes, Mbumo, Cunha, all of them can be must-haves at some points. They have other good defenders as well. So at this point, I think Evan Nilsson definitely is the one I would target. But I was actually starting to shut this stream down. Have been on for like 90 minutes plus. So thanks all for joining in. If you're interested, subscribe to the channel. I usually have those kind of streams, usually the night before the deadline. I have commitments tomorrow, and that's the reason why it's on a Thursday this time. But thanks all for joining in. Lovely game week 24 discussion, and hopefully I'll see